All right, everyone. So we have the next part in Totally Not Mark's 100% blind Naruto review. This one is going to be covering the Tenchi Bridge and the Akatsuki Suppression. So before we get into this, guys, as always, I have to ask you that if you want to show support for the channel, remember to leave a like. Make sure to share this video out there. Please hit the subscribe button if you're new. Make sure to also hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video. And please comment down below with your thoughts. All of those things really help push videos out now in the algorithm, because YouTube sure as hell isn't going to do that. So let's get into the video, and I'm really excited to see what his thoughts are for the Tenchi Bridge and the Akatsuki Suppression. Now, I think we've talked about the Akatsuki Suppression Arc before in a previous video, and I mentioned that while for me personally, it's not really one of my favorites. I think it's below on the list of where I would rank each and every Naruto arc, and even though I don't think it's bad, I just don't think it's as good as the others, especially the one that came before it. The Tenchi Bridge, like everything that happens there with, of course, the the information they got from Sasori about Kabuto being a double agent, and then it turns out that that's all complete BS, that was never actually true. Turns out Kabuto was actually a spy for Orochimaru the entire time, and just all the little details that went into that series was just, in my opinion, so beautifully done by Kishimoto. And then the Akatsuki Suppression Arc, for me, again, like, just not as good as the the events of Tenchi Bridge. And then of course them going on to meet Sasuke and that confrontation, I just thought again was very well executed. Kishimoto used that obviously as a chance to show just how far Sasuke has progressed, and he's just destroying all of Team 7, and he wasn't even being 100% serious. I absolutely loved it. And the Akatsuki Suppression, I thought, was good to give some development to Naruto, and especially with him developing the Rasen Shuriken and being able to perform an ability that even his father, who was considered to be a genius, wasn't capable of doing, was just all absolutely amazing. All right, you know what, that's enough stalling. Let's go ahead and watch the video. Oh, sorry, one more thing I forgot to mention. Make sure to check the description for links to this video as well as Mark's channel. As always, guys, head on over there. Make sure to subscribe to him and go show him some support.
This video is brought to you by Manscaped. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Mark Pronounces Japanese Names and Words Incorrectly, otherwise known as my blind review series. Last week I covered the reintroduction of the main characters after the time skip, the retrieval of Gaara, and their respective battles against the Akatsuki group, responsible for much of the conflict in the second half of the video.
Yeah, that was something we did notice in the previous videos, where he was kind of pronouncing the Akatsuki's name incorrectly. I don't know if someone pointed out to him, maybe his editor or someone else, or maybe someone in the comments kept pointing out that, hey dude, you're not really pronouncing Akatsuki correctly.
I've been covering Naruto for a couple months now, and with me now well into my 37th volume of the story, I think this material I'm covering today might just be my favorite in quite a while. Exploring the sinister and surprising Tenchi Bridge mission, the new scope of Naruto's power, and a touching story with Shikamaru, the likes of which I never saw myself becoming so invested in. I'm honestly so excited to discuss with you all my thoughts on these two arcs, so let's dive.
Alright, yeah, I can hear the music, so I'm sorry, I know you guys find this annoying, but I kind of have to, because yeah, I gotta do everything I can to avoid copyright, because YouTube's copyright system is just, it needs work. Let's just say that.
Dive into the tense Tenchi Bridge reconnaissance mission and the supremely well-written Akatsuki Suppression mission.
Okay, we're good. It was louder than I thought, so I had to just completely mute.
Before I jump into things, I quickly want to let you know what I have planned for December. Initially, I had planned on taking this December off, but instead, how about this? Spider-Man No Way Home hits theaters this December 17th, and so I thought it might be fun if this December we go full Spider-themed. In a challenge I am dubbing Spidey-cember. It's a brilliant name. Within which I will attempt to review and break down some of the most iconic and heavily criticized live-action Spider-Man films ever to be released. I'm talking Garfield, I'm talking Tobey Maguire, I'm talking Tom Under My Umbrella Ella Holland. I'll be making 3 videos, kicking things off this Spidey-cember with the Raimi trilogy on December 2nd, which I haven't seen since I was a kid in theaters. I can't wait to share with you all my feelings on these films that honestly changed my life, and I hope to see you there for this Spidey-cember.
その動力とは史上にまがまがしいチャクラ。かつての内浜だらと同じだな。
Something I haven't complimented Naruto as much for in this series is its consistent sense of flow. In the past, I've criticized shows like Dragon Ball Super for feeling, broadly speaking, like a collection of short story arcs with clear-cut beginnings and endings, with little to no connective tissue between arcs themselves to help create a sense that there's this grand story or adventure. In the original Dragon Ball, so many of the arcs flowed naturally into each other, providing setups and payoffs for themselves. In other words, it successfully felt like a single massive story. And thankfully, I can say the same is true for Naruto. Something happens in one arc, and so therefore, those actions or outcomes necessarily impact the coming narrative. The Chunin exams led to the ambush, which led to the third Hokage's death, which led to the search for Tsunade, etc., etc. Everything in this universe feels connected, which in turn, for me at least, helps me to feel that much more invested in each and every narrative choice that's made, because I know that each and every narrative choice is likely to directly impact the future.
誰だって聞いてんだ
There were a few things that stuck with me after the conclusion to last week's material. Firstly, it was the amicable nature Gaara embraced Naruto with, highlighting that these two are the only 2 people in their respective circles that truly understand each other, and due to that fact, the lengths Naruto went to for Gaara really helped to highlight how far he has come socially, now surrounded by the family he always wanted and has now acquired, despite the losses that took place to make
This, I gotta admit, this was a nice move by Gaara, what he did here.
helped to highlight how
Where
far
he,
he has come socially,
where
now
he-
surrounded by the
Where he told them, just we have to let Lady Chiyo pass first, basically showing respect to her. And again, I absolutely loved it, and it just makes you, or at least it makes me, I can't speak for someone else, it makes me remember why I love Gaara so much, because it's always interesting to see just how much he's changed, or how much he's grown from who he was before, from what we've seen him in the or from how we've seen him in the Chunin exams, and then later the Konoha crush. Just absolutely amazing development, or not development, progression that Kishimoto did with Gaara.
family he always wanted and has now acquired, despite the losses that took place to make all of this possible, representing a dated way of thinking now passing on. There was Kakashi's ability to use the variation on the Mangekyo Sharingan, which on its own is awesome, but speaks to a sadness for his past where he lost a friend in Obito. In a nutshell, my reaction to it was, oh my god, this is so... Oh, no, it's really sad, isn't it? And finally, the introduction of a new character called Sai. My first impression of Sai was that he was creepy and underhanded. And while all of my assessment
That's
was
pretty much how a lot of
technically
people
correct, what he offers
thought
to
of
this
him when he
story
first
is so much
debuted.
more than that simple first impression. From a consistency perspective, he slots into the story rather seamlessly. Despite him being a relative unknown before this introduction, with him coming from the Black Ops Foundation, he seems like a natural addition to the team of Sakura and Naruto, seeing as they at this point were missing Kakashi and Sasuke in their cell. However, despite Sai joining the team, Naruto and Sakura still needed a leader to help them follow through on this lead provided by Sasori in the previous arc. The lead informed them of a scheduled meeting he had organized with a mole he had in the ranks of Orochimaru, which happens to be exactly where Naruto wants to be. Due to the importance of this mission, Lady Tsunade employs the help of Yamato, a level-headed and grounded older ninja descended from the first Hokage. This guy didn't make a massive impression on me, but he does offer a useful
Well, actually, that's not really correct. Yamato's not descendant from the first Hokage. Yeah, a lot of people thought that at first because he, showed his ability to use wood style, and it was revealed that only Hashirama Senju had that ability. So they thought, okay, well, maybe he has to be like a descendant, and then you find out, no, it's because he's a or he was a subject of Orochimaru and all his experiments with, Hashirama cells. And yeah, that's why he's able to use wood style, although nowhere near as well as Hashirama could. Hell, even Madara wasn't using it as well as Hashirama was.
Mechanism that does come into play later, and overall seems like a swell and balanced fellow. By and large, he doesn't offer a massive amount emotionally to the story, but in terms of facilitating the plot, no other character helps in that respect more. Once again, broadly speaking, I think Sai is an interesting character for two reasons. I mentioned that within this story it made sense for him to join their ranks to help out. However, it's what this fellow represents for the series that I think offers his true strengths within this narrative. Firstly, he seems to be the embodiment of what shinobi are in this world. Raised by the Black Ops forces, he doesn't possess any emotion or even understanding of how other people react or think. He's an extreme manifestation of the tool for destruction and espionage that have been espoused by the higher-ups of this world, even by the third Hokage himself at one point. That's one reason why he's interesting. The second reason is how he complements and contrasts Naruto. I've spoken about the importance of creating a contrast character for Naruto, the main character, to amplify his own personality. Sasuke was that for Naruto first, and at various points in the narrative, that role has shifted to different individuals. In this instance, Sai fulfills that role. So many of his values run counter to Naruto's, and just like clockwork, he brings out the best in our titular ninja. What's also interesting with this character is the effect he has on both Naruto and Sakura.
And the way it ends up paying off, like what you just said, where Naruto, reminds Sai of who he used to be, and the way it gets paid off in the war arc when he meets his brother again and is able to have that resolution, I thought was actually really well done by Kishimoto. And I know that obviously the war arc's not the best one. There's a lot of flaws just from a narrative perspective, and like the first half of it was like, kind of not really all that interesting. It felt like Kishimoto was kind of using it as an opportunity to, wrap up some storylines that he initially set up. Like you had the whole storyline between Gaara and his father, which I believe me, I absolutely love that. And every time I get to it, it still gets me. Like that whole, like the way it ended, just absolutely beautiful. But overall, I gotta be honest, like the first half of, although technically that part was more towards the, if I remember correctly, the end of, I guess, the first half of the war arc, and that's because that's when Madara eventually shows up, and the story just kicks into high gear ever since. Definitely the best move that Kishimoto made.
Bluntly and coldly addressing the actions of Sasuke, he puts pressure on both of them to justify Sasuke's behavior, leading to a variety of refusals from Naruto to work with him in the first place, and many, many outbursts, the best of which was this.
その仲間を救うためならお前とだって組んでやる
This is what I mean when I say Sai brings out the best in Naruto. What was once rage and childish retaliation has been replaced with a calm, unflinching resolve when he starts to realize that these words from Sai don't necessarily come from a place of intentional antagonism, but instead from a genuine and troubling bewilderment that's only interested in looking at the situation from a cold, utilitarian standpoint. Tenchi Bridge. This section had me stressed the hell out, and I truly mean that. Apart from the plan as it currently is being extremely shaky no matter what way you look at it, trying to impersonate Sasori, we also have the wild card in Sai, and we learn that the informant is Kabuto. Add on top of that the fact that Kabuto is actually a triple agent there to betray and kill Sasori, and you have for yourself a page turner unlike any I've seen from this series in a long while. Also, there's this instance in this arc where Lady Tsunade is looking out and notices an animal jumping out from the brush, and once again this happens here at the bridge. I thought this was interesting as it turns out it's actually Orochimaru lying in wait, which made me think, was he at the village too? I mean, I love stuff like that because even if it wasn't, it's still a cool piece of paranoia Kishimoto's injected into my mind, which is great because now we're primed for a spectacular fight, and this fight is all of that and a bag of chips. Something this arc does a phenomenal job with is making the fight feel personal. As soon as Yamato sees Orochimaru and everything on the bridge starts turning south, he signals for the others. This was a brilliant touch to add drama to this story, with a great piece of visual storytelling through Naruto immediately showing signs of losing himself to that more aggressive and feral fox spirit state he's been in before. This is an incredibly important and emotional battle for Naruto, and to see this reinforced by his immediate elevation into this state without warning was brilliant. However, what made me fall in love with this section wasn't necessarily the cool visuals, but the meaning and narrative behind them and the consequences thereafter. There's a heavy—
And I gotta just say this real quick. I prefer how it happened in the manga, not because I thought the anime was bad, but they did that whole thing where sometimes long-running shonen do, where they'll sometimes take a small moment in the manga that actually happened pretty quickly, and they'll just stretch it out over an entire episode. Like, that's kind of what happened here, where an entire episode was just spent on Naruto powering up and going into Three Tails. Was just that's the one thing that I just kind of didn't really like about, you know, this part in the anime. Like, I didn't notice it at first, and then when I went back and I watched it again, yeah, that's when you immediately see, oh, they really did this, and it just it got a little bit annoying. Is all.
Heavy amount of emphasis placed on Jiraiya's words as he explains to Yamato what he went through while training Naruto over the last number of years, informing him not to allow too many tales to reveal themselves as Naruto needs more and more power, with them effectively acting as a mechanism to display how far gone Naruto has lost himself to the fox spirit itself. As I said, it all looks very impressive. However, as Naruto powers up to attack Orochimaru and Kabuto, this happens. There's an obvious lesson to learn here for Naruto, but remember what I said about this being an emotional and personal fight for more than one person? Well, while I saw and enjoyed what Naruto offered in this situation, I was completely taken aback by how Sakura reacted to being hurt in the process of this power-up. When she wakes, she doesn't feel hurt or emotionally shocked by Naruto's attack. Instead, her reaction is perfectly in keeping with her own existing motivations. She sees this as a direct result of not Naruto being selfish or losing control unnecessarily, but instead her own prior weaknesses. She couldn't bring Sasuke back, and as a result, Naruto made a promise to bring Sasuke back no matter what. And as it happens, no matter what in this instance means this. It's extreme to say the least. He's on the brink and he may even lose his life. This sort of clear-headedness and honest accountability on behalf of Sakura is not only refreshing to hear, but incredibly brave and noble too. After seeing this reaction from Sakura, it honestly felt like she had grown the most during the time skip. It's a remarkable difference. On the Naruto front, the finesse, humanity, and technique of him is completely gone at this point. There are no familiar techniques on display like the shadow.
Nope, it's all Nine Tails.
I think to make this form feel like an embodiment of something Naruto isn't. And when you combine that with the fact that he's up against Orochimaru, it's in every sense of the word no longer a battle between ninja, but monsters at this point. Sakura does try to help and bring Naruto back from the brink once again, but she gets hurt in the process. Alright, so this was visually awesome and super fun to read through. It felt immensely cathartic watching Orochimaru on the back foot during this encounter. We haven't seen him fight all out in a while, and this fox spirit really seems to be pushing him back at every turn. Again, the layout and page spreads are fitting for the occasion, but if I'm being honest, the best stuff comes after the smoke clears, and Yamato, using his special abilities, is able to seal away that spirit and bring Naruto back from that breaking point. This is where Yamato proves himself as a worthy leader and noble ninja, in my opinion.
You end up finding out why he specifically was chosen for this mission is because he has Hashirama's ability to use the, I think it was called, if I remember correctly, the 10th Edict on Enlightenment, where he can seal away a tailed beast's chakra. So yeah, they knew that Naruto at this point was having a bit of trouble, thanks to Jiraiya, of course, giving them this information, having a bit of trouble controlling the Nine Tails, and it all relates to, again, his mental state going into Shippuden, where he is consistently thinking about his failure to bring Sasuke back, and it consistently weighing on him and causing him to doubt himself, which of course Kurama decided to take advantage of.
His confrontation with Naruto concerning the responsibility he has to do his best without the help of the fox spirit is exactly what I was getting at last week. This spirit provides a welcome shortcut and might even feel empowering. Naruto very clearly wants something, and at this point this seems like the easiest route to meet that goal. However, there are clear and easily identifiable drawbacks to this line of action, and this is a common angle in coming-of-age stories. Take Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 for example. It's not everyone's favorite film, but it tries tries to tell
I
this
like
exact
it.
story. The Venom symbiote, while offering some more power
Again,
and
obviously
freedom,
nowhere near
comes
as
at
good
the
as
cost of
Spider-Man
what
2 or
makes Peter
Spider-Man
Parker
1, but
himself, leading to him hurting
I
those
kind
around
of
him. The
enjoy
exact same
it for
thing
what it
happens
is.
to Naruto in this instance, capping off the confrontation with a quote so perfect from Yamato, I'd put it up there as one of my favorite quotes from this entire series. The source of your strength, Naruto, isn't the foxtail spirit, it's your own. If you want to help Sasuke, do it using your own power. If you want to protect Sakura, do it using your own strength. Brilliant. This portion of the story is where Yamato's upsides really shine for me as a new addition to the main squad. On top of being a noble, level-headed leader type, he's also skilled in a wide and rare variety of jutsu. One that comes in massively handy when Sai, who had been missing during the encounter with Orochimaru, attempts to join forces with him and leaves promptly along with Kabuto and himself. Thankfully, however, Yamato has a tracker on him, and little does Sai know that he's about to lead him to where Orochimaru's hiding with Sasuke. This is a fantastic chance for them to save him and a chance for Naruto to show that he can control his desire to relinquish control to the spirit inside of him.
てめえはなんで俺たちを裏切った
Once they confront Sai in his cell, the true scope of what he represents in this series is plain as day. While yes, he represents broadly speaking what ninjas mean in this world, specific to him, he also has a sketchbook which reveals a lot more about him and the process he was created within in the first place. Once upon a time, having a brother, someone who cherished him, who cared for him, and someone who held onto a specific sketchbook for. However, when he died, Sai lost any and all memory of what he was going to put into that book for his brother. This book itself represents Sai's lost humanity. In conversations, he refers to himself as no one, nobody, a clean slate that can act as an extension of Danzo's will, a product of the Foundation's cruel methods to expunge him of all that made him who he was in the first place. Or at least that seems to be the case until recently, for when he realizes he's lost that sketchbook, he shows visible concern, proving to us, the readers and viewers, that while his humanity might not be visible on the surface, deep down, tied to what that book represents are the remnants of who he really is as a person. There's a confrontation between Naruto and Sai where Naruto tries to explain to him his reasoning as to why he's so determined to save Sasuke from those circumstances despite his desire to stay and have nothing more to do with him. And in it, I think there's a connection being made between Naruto meaning nothing to Sasuke and Sai referring to himself as no one. Despite Sasuke actively seeing Naruto as, quote, nothing, just because someone says something isn't so doesn't remove the bond that exists between two people that genuinely cared for each other. This speaks to Sai's relationship with his brother. When faced with Sai further questioning why Naruto insists on trying to save someone in Sasuke, instead of getting angry, Naruto compassionately and calmly explains his relationship with Sasuke and his determination in the face of impossible odds to never stop fighting for him. And in a way, it's as if he's directly speaking to Sai himself. And while a very solemn scene, I think it's really effective. And at this moment, Naruto feels like he's reached an understanding with Sai, perhaps for the first time since he's met him, leading to him for the first time actually trusting him to carry out an important job, to locate Sasuke in this hideout. And it's here that Kishimoto decides to once again place some paranoia and doubt in our minds, as he reveals Sai's original plan wasn't to help their team or to even be a conduit between Danzo and Orochimaru, but instead to specifically assassinate Sasuke. Whether or not the experiences and epiphanies he's had since meeting Naruto...
I'm not gonna lie, I always thought was kind of funny, like, okay, so they wanted him to find and kill Sasuke, but did they, like... Surely they didn't think that it was going to be that easy. I mean, this is Sasuke. They know he's a member of the Uchiha clan. He's got the Sharingan and he's being trained by Orochimaru, one of the three Sannin. Couldn't they have sent someone a bit different? Like someone who might actually stand a chance? I mean, I don't know. That just always felt a little bit weird to me.
Will be enough to
also, this moment was really cool.
Another question, but either way, with good intentions or not, he's running to Sasuke's location. It's super exciting as the decision Sai makes once he reaches Sasuke will effectively define his true intentions and really his character. I love stuff like this. It makes me rethink the entire interaction he had with Naruto, asking questions like, did he master emotional deception like what Sakura did to him earlier in the story? And even if he hasn't, the very fact that Kishimoto got me thinking and asking these questions is proof that he absolutely nailed this tension building sequence. Thankfully though, as it happens, Sai turns out to be a good boy.
あんた本当は何が狙いなの？私たちを何回裏切れば気が済むの？
The reunion between Sasuke and the others feels monumental. It very much feels like the culmination of everything that's been built up to so far. And Kishimoto goes all out in dedicating as much real estate as possible.
I mean, that's something that Kishimoto does really like to do, which is he likes to set things up and then just slowly build towards that moment that everyone just absolutely loves. Now, it's not like a slow burn or anything, and it's not that it's slow paced. Actually, it's pretty, I think it was mentioned before in one of the videos that I did, where they actually brought up that it's actually a lot quicker paced than people give it credit for. Like, it actually happens pretty quickly. Now, if you watch the anime, it's a lot slower, so maybe that's probably where people might get the idea that it's really slow, but in actuality it's not. Like, if you read the manga, it's really quick, actually. Not too quick. It's not like really fast paced or anything. No, it's very appropriately paced, I would say. Like, it's a good balance. Like, it's not too quick or it's not too slow, but he does like to build things up, as opposed to just having it happen pretty quickly.
Within the chapter this scene takes place in, for massive page spreads to fully capture the emotion of that moment. From the first time seeing each other in years to close-ups of their respective reactions to seeing each other. There are so many full page spreads that at points it almost looks like a coloring book. And I mean that in the best possible way. They look very impressive, with the expressions, positioning and staging of characters offering plenty in the way of tone setting. Furthermore, this sequence deals with some of my favorite subject matter and comes packed with some wonderful imagery to convey what's happening to boot. When battling with Sasuke, we get to see a host of new abilities he's clearly been working on still with the single-minded purpose of finding and killing his brother. To him now, he claims that nothing else matters to him except his brother's death, even if it means merging with Orochimaru. This I don't think I believe, though. It's almost as if he wants to convince himself that, and I say that because of what happens later on. My favorite part of this encounter has to be the struggle Naruto is undergoing. And not just with Sasuke, but himself. A struggle to resist the allure of tapping into the Fox Spirit's power and to increase his chances of forcibly taking Sasuke back home. It's a wonderful example of Naruto putting others first and showing belief in himself to do what needs to be done with his own power and strength. However, there is something that makes this scene a little more freaky. While Naruto is trying to center himself in his mind and subdue the Fox Spirit, Sasuke is there in his mind with himself and the Fox. It's a first in the series, and in being such, it really gives Sasuke an air of superiority and control, the likes of which we've not seen so far.
And then
However,
he goes on to
once
suppress
again,
the chakra.
Sasuke says that nothing else matters to him other than his brother's killing. He leaves Naruto and everyone else alive, despite them posing a direct opposition to his plans and their consistent insistence on sticking their noses in when he has actively stated that he doesn't want that. There's a contradiction at play here. If nothing else matters, including your own well-being, then why not get rid of them here and now? Well, I guess because while he doesn't want to admit it, there is something else important to him.
Well, hold on, I'll let him finish.
His friends. So while this fight and mission ends in spectacular failure, Naruto and his allies at the very least left with their lives and a deeper understanding of the current situation. They need to become stronger. I really enjoyed this arc. I felt like...
Okay, so what I'm going to say about that, what he said about Naruto and Sasuke leaving them alive, you have to remember, yes, I do agree with him, and I've said this before in multiple videos, is that Sasuke, no matter how much he wanted to convince himself, he could never really stop caring about Naruto or Sakura. He never could. Now, there was at one point in the story, and it was after Itachi died, where I think that he genuinely would have had no problem killing Naruto, but that's that was a special case because of he just got the information that Itachi was just going, like, he was just like carrying out his mission that was given to him by the Leaf, and that what he did to the Uchiha clan was all part of that mission. And he was at a point where he absolutely hated the Leaf Village and everyone in it, which included Naruto. So at that point, yes, he hated them enough to want to kill them. But before then, and even after that, like after he got over that, the emotional state that he was in, he genuinely, like, he never wanted to actually kill them. But in this instance, like Sasuke was actually about to kill him again. He was about to perform a jutsu, which we still have no idea what that jutsu actually was. A lot of people have theorized it was actually Kirin, but like some of the conditions needed to perform that ability weren't there. I mean, unless you're telling me he can do it without it, I don't know. We don't really know. But Orochimaru is the one who stopped him, and Orochimaru is the one who convinced him that. Well, Orochimaru and Kabuto convinced him that, leave him alive, because then they'll take out more members of the Akatsuki, which will make it easier for you to get your revenge. And also, Orochimaru gets to remove the Akatsuki because they're also after him. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
In spectacular failure, Naruto and his allies need to become stronger. I really enjoyed this arc. I felt like it started strong, introduced and established some really interesting new characters while reinforcing the themes of responsibility, and highlighted the indoctrination of young ninja at a new extreme through the likes of Sai, who I ended up really liking in the finish. Both of the big fight sequences in this arc centered around pivotal narrative beats concerning the likes of Naruto, Sakura, Sai, Yamato, and Sasuke. Overall, I thought this arc was efficient, focused, and snappy. The Tenchi Bridge sequence had me at the edge of my seat, and it managed to maintain that tension through the battle with Sasuke. And thankfully, they not only managed to continue this goodness into the next arc, but expanded some love to characters like Shikamaru, who has since quickly become one of, if not my favorite character to follow in this story. So let's dive into this arc and see why.
Yeah, the Akatsuki Suppression Arc, I think, made Shikamaru the favorite in a lot of people's eyes. I really do think that, like, Shikamaru before then, I think, was definitely liked by a lot of people, but this arc is what probably put him in a lot of people's favorite characters list, like top 10 favorite characters.
It's Christmas! Well, okay, not quite, but Santa's here early to ensure my jingle balls are all in great shape with the new performance package from Manscaped. The Lawnmower 4.0 is the absolute highlight of this package. This cordless trimmer is not only waterproof and great for sensitive skin thanks to its skin-safe tech, but it also features a festive LED light that's perfect for those dark winter nights. But oh, what's this? Is that the crop preserver and crop reviver in your stocking, or are you just happy to see me? That's right, this kit comes with handy ball deodorant and ball toner spray to ensure you smell great across the festive season. And hey, if you're feeling the tingle of tinsel up your nose, the Weed Whacker nose and ear trimmer has you covered too. Thanks to Santa! 360-degree rotary blades and the same skin-safe tech from the trimmer. This thing is wonderful. Every guy needs to add Manscaped to their wish list this season, and if you've got a special man in your life that's been extra good this year, then make sure to get him this awesome performance package. It even comes with a free travel bag and boxers. That's 2 gifts in 1! So don't wait. Go to manscaped.com and use my promo code NOTMARK20 to get 20% off plus free international shipping and 2 free gifts.
Focuses on 2 characters in Naruto and Shikamaru, with the latter carrying most of the heavy lifting along with his cell group after a tragedy befalls them. It's rich with coming-of-age lessons to learn, and through these 2 characters primarily, we see what that looks like as we explore their mindsets after each of their respective setbacks.
By the way, this is still, in my opinion, one of the best episodes in all of Shippuden. Just the fact that the entire episode was animated this way, and it genuinely felt like a movie. Like, it genuinely reminded me of the last Naruto the movie, the way it was animated, and a lot of other anime films. Just absolutely beautifully done, and I absolutely love that they actually expanded on this part of the story, because in the manga, like, after Asuma's death, it immediately went into Shikamaru planning his counterattack against Hidan and Kakuzu, and the anime actually chose to show Shikamaru grieving over Asuma's death. And I can't help but wonder, like, I do remember hearing this, so like I said, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember that when Kishimoto was writing the Akatsuki Suppression Arc, that he was actually injured, and because of that he had to kind of skip over some things that he wanted to do, and the anime, I guess, may have it may have actually picked up on that and actually added it to the story. I don't know if that's true or not. Let me know if it is. But yeah, either way, I absolutely love this episode. One of my favorite episodes. I could just go back and watch this any day.
We see what that looks like as we explore their mindsets after each of their respective setbacks. Naruto after coming face to face with Sasuke and failing in the prior arc, and Shikamaru who experienced his own unique losses. Having completed my notes on this section, I also realized that I didn't talk or write much about the two main antagonists of this arc, two Akatsuki members called Hidan and Kakuzu. Given the amount of focus the themes surrounding other characters receive in this arc, I was surprised with just how much characterization this pair ended up receiving, which only helps, I think, in the long run to elevate the struggle to defeat these two ultimately. Instead of appearing stereotypical, brandishing all the personality of a brooding piece of wood, these two genuinely felt like two individuals distinct from each other that on a consistent basis break each other's chops, cracking jokes and insulting each other like two guys in the office with an established rapport. Their powers, particularly Hidan's, introduce some wonderful opportunities for Shikamaru to play with at various stages, and Kakuzu is just straight up a massive wall the likes of which even Kakashi struggles to overcome, priming him as the perfect target for our hero of focus in this arc, Naruto. However, with that said, I've heard justifiable complaints aimed at this arc's conclusion, and I'll be exploring them as well as offering my 2 cents. So let's start from the start. Naruto's training. This is what Naruto does for effectively the entire runtime of this arc until the end. Struggle through training after failing to help Sasuke. As it stands, I love training sequences for characters. I find them compelling and often bolster the trainees' characterization and motivations by showing their tenacity and determination to achieve their respective goals through hardship. However, something makes this arc stand out amidst all the other training stints in the story. Something that expanded my understanding of jutsu and placed what I believe to be a massive, near impossible task in front of Naruto. A near impossible task with a ridiculously short time limit. Through this training, we come to learn from Kakashi that the Rasengan, a move Naruto already struggled to get this level of competency with, is actually an incomplete jutsu developed by the 4th Hokage himself. I thought that was a really nice touch as it leads Kakashi into a quieter, more inspirational sequence where he confidently states that he believes in Naruto and that he thinks that someday he will surpass even the 4th Hokage himself. Moments like this make me reflect on when Kakashi first met Naruto back in the beginning, not knowing just how far this little kid would go, but throughout saw glimpses of his potential, leading to this moment where he reaffirms Naruto's desire and belief in himself. But there's still a lot of work to do, so let's break down exactly what needs to be done. Naruto needs to, number 1, learn to use his change of nature type jutsu. Number 2, then combine it with the Rasengan to complete a jutsu that even the 4th Hokage couldn't. Oh, and number 3, to do this all within a time frame so short that it would be impossible to complete any of these steps in isolation. This story is all about surpassing barriers, overcoming the odds, and showing the naysayers wrong, but with these exact parameters, as a reader, I sincerely felt as though there was absolutely no way to make this work other than making some sort of plot contrivance, and that's when Kakashi had one of the most ingenious ideas I've ever heard in this story.
多重影分身だ。だから修行期間を短縮する方法だよ。
I love when stories can surprise me, and truthfully, I never considered this as an option. Partially because I wasn't 100% on the mechanics of the technique, but it's honestly a perfect strategy. There isn't enough time for Naruto to practice and perfect this technique on his own, but if he splits up into hundreds of clones, then he can cram years worth of training into a comparatively tiny amount of time.
And
the
it's
best
something
part
that
about
only
this
Naruto
strategy
could
is
do
that
because of
this
his
is an
insanely
approach
large
only
chakra
Naruto
reserves.
himself can utilize due to the circumstances of his birth and the resulting bottomless pit of chakra he has. And what's more is, despite the stress of what has just happened with Sasuke, he remains focused, willing to shoulder all of this responsibility, time and time again pushing himself to the absolute limit, his breaking point, with this entire sequence in the story representing Naruto's true strength and tenacity independent of the fox spirit. And as a result of all of this technique, when he perfects it, it will be a technique not only uniquely his own, but has been developed with the express purpose of giving him the strength he needs to save his friend. With the best part being it will free him from having to rely on the fox spirit's power, building upon the lessons learned in the prior arc. And so, as a continuation of Naruto's story, I loved this training sequence. Shikamaru's team versus Hidan and Kakuzu. This is the plotline that gives this arc its name. While out on a suppression mission to stop the Akatsuki personnel, Team Asuma, with Shikamaru present, runs into two individuals I touched on earlier, Hidan and Kakuzu. As I think it should, a large portion of this fight hinges on the reader's or our hero's lack of understanding of the enemy. We have no idea at this point what their powers are, why they're so confident, and what on earth Hidan is wearing. Naturally, due to the mystery surrounding their abilities, the stakes raise themselves considerably, creating an ideal circumstance for Shikamaru to formulate a plan of action after deciphering what jutsu Hidan is utilizing, leading to a brilliant and absolutely brutal killing strike of Hidan by Asuma, the squad leader. But wait.
Psych! That's
You know, this was something that I always really liked that the anime did, where
Hidan is utilizing, leading to a brilliant and absolutely brutal killing strike
they would take panels from the manga and just recreate them in the anime. I just always really liked that, and I know Naruto's not the only one, or not the only series to have ever done this. You know, Dragon Ball did it, One Piece I'm sure does it. Yeah, in fact, I actually think they do. Yeah, One Piece definitely does it. And I think, yeah, Bleach and all of them actually kind of do it, but you know, for the most, like, there are some panels that they'll recreate, but you know, for the most part, because it's an anime, they have to make, you know, some changes. Excuse me. They got to make some changes. Like, they have to actually add movement because it is an anime. It's a different medium of telling the story. And like, you see here how it just went from
leading to a
Asuma standing and then
brutal killing strike,
then just immediately cuts to this, which is just like, you know, Kishimoto's panel redrawn. I do kind of wish that they would have added a little bit more. Like, maybe you would have seen like a shot of Asuma's arm, you know, swinging his blade, the chakra blade, and then you see it like connect to, you know, Hidan's neck and actually then severing it. Although maybe that's a little bit too much because it is still aimed at young kids, so I guess they can't really show the actual neck being cut off. So yeah, again, I understand why they probably couldn't, because, you know, TV standards, like, they can't do certain things, like just like how they have to you know, not show blood or anything else that's kind of meant for older audiences.
Of Hidan by Asuma, the squad leader. But wait.
psych!
And in case you're wondering, this is, I think, if I remember correctly, mostly in the DVD, because I think the actual television version was censored, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, it's been a while.
That's the wrong number!
With that and Shikamaru zapped of energy, unable to restrain him any longer, he's forced to watch on, powerless, as Asuma gets stabbed to near death in front of him, in a fashion only Hidan could possibly pull off thanks to his gruesome and honestly sadistic jutsu. Moments before he dies, reinforcements arrive, forcing the two Akatsuki members to turn tail and run for it, leaving Asuma to die in Shikamaru's arms, imparting before he leaves some final words to each of his students. And surprisingly, this felt authentic. It felt tragic with an appropriate level of gravity to it, for sure, but what I was surprised by was how readily I got on board with and connected to how Shikamaru and his cell group.
By the way, sorry, I just want to talk about this real quick, and it connects to something that really bothers me every time I see it, but I think he's using the panels from, or I think his editor is probably using panels from the actual, you know, Viz, maybe from the, you know, the Viz app, I'm guessing. Again, I could be wrong, but I still hate when they did, because for some reason Viz was censoring this, because Shikamaru here is supposed to be smoking a cigarette, you know, in honor of Asuma, and Asuma also was smoking one, and they chose to get rid of it. Again, I don't know why. I still don't know why they do this. Like, I mean, like, it's just, I hate it every time I see it, like, and it never makes sense. Like, it never makes sense why they censor it. So yeah, they actually removed Shikamaru's cigarette, which was actually like pretty symbolic, pretty important to the story, but you chose to get rid of it. Why? Because you think some kid is going to see it and think, oh, you know, I can't wait for it to rain so I can smoke like Shikamaru. It's just stupid.
And his cell group
Stupid.
must have been feeling.
さらけ出しまい。
Just the audio drop. Oof.
Asuma's death.
Mm.
I'm not sure if this will come
Beautiful.
as a surprise to anyone, but I didn't expect to care as much as I did during this sequence. It shocked me with how touching I found this ceremony and the lengthy amount of time given to this character's passing. And
Well, I think I think I can speak to this a little bit. I think the reason why a lot of us cared is because it was Shikamaru. Like, you were seeing, and granted, Kishimoto also did a good job of making Asuma like really likable, and but I think you mostly felt it because of Shikamaru, because he's a character you care about, and seeing him just absolutely destroyed over Asuma makes you realize, oh, this is someone who was like really important to him, someone he looked up to. And you know, this does happen, you know, with a lot of stories. Like, whenever there's a character that you really love, a character that you really connect to, because the author did such a good job of fleshing out this character, or just did a good job of making this character someone that a lot of people can relate to. And then when you see them just absolutely destroyed over the loss of someone that they care about, it actually hits you just as much as it hits them in the story. Even though this is like someone that you don't really know all that well, you still feel it, because again, like, you're feeling what the character's feeling. And again, that's just a sign of just how amazing Kishimoto is as a writer. Now that's not to say he's like, you know, a perfect writer, because even he has flaws just like any other writer. But I think that a lot of people kind of underestimate him as a writer, at least in my opinion.
did during this sequence. It shocked me with how touching I found this ceremony and the lengthy amount of time
See, he's got a cigarette here, but why did they censor Shikamaru's? I don't...
given to this character's passing. And since then, I've wondered why that was. Asuma wasn't by any means a character I had an issue with, but I also wouldn't say he was one I was particularly close to either. Which, honestly, in retrospect, made me wish I had formed more of a bond with this character across the series instead of just the last 10 or so chapters. But it did make me wonder why I was feeling as strongly as I did during this scene. And I think the reason was Shikamaru. You see, going into a long-running series completely blind like I am, with the expectation of writing a review each and every week, is kinda like being an archer without a target being asked to hit the bullseye. I try to make guesses as to what's important to remark upon, but I'll always miss something when I'm going in blind. It's just the nature of the beast. When I reviewed Dragon Ball earlier in the year, I found it to be a very pleasant experience, as I knew what was or was not important, and so could focus on and plant seeds for future things I wanted to talk about, like Goku's transformation into the Ozaru in the first arc, and how it has a direct connection in explaining his last moments with his grandpa, who we will then meet much later in the Uranai Baba section. I can't do stuff like that with Naruto. I can only speak about things that impacted me on that given week of reading and hope and pray that I got the important stuff. However, Shikamaru has been a character that has time and time again impressed me to no end. Initially, he seemed like a disinterested, unmotivated, and boring character to make up numbers for the background cast. But in his Chunin exam fight, he proved me wrong. After that, he seemed like an interesting character, but not one that would have served a leading role. And that's when the chase for Sasuke happened, and I once again was proven wrong. And now I find myself over 300 chapters into this story, watching as this character I never anticipated I would spend so much time with or connect to, one that has earned his standing through struggle, talent, and effort across this series, making myself feel this loss. I think across the entire story, no character has surprised or impacted me
even in
more
the anime,
than Shikamaru.
they didn't
And
show
what I
it.
really appreciate about this series is how dedicated and comfortable Kishimoto is in basking in the more quiet moments, whether that be solemn, emotional, still, or any combination of these. I've recognized him as being an incredible artist with a particular flair for action, creating some wonderfully kinetic layouts. However, his attention to the quieter moments across this series has really heightened my experience, clearly on display during Asuma's funeral. Distant shots of Shikamaru informing his family in a long hallway, all the framing here really helping to sell the atmosphere Kishimoto's going for, with everyone taking the time to commemorate this noble and much loved shinobi, with an appropriate amount of focus on the character of Shikamaru. And while I thought all of this was great, once I finished this arc, my team suggested I take a closer look at one specific episode from the anime. One that, while technically filler, in many instances elevated this section of the story to new heights the manga never reached on its own. Episode 82. Episode 82 of Shippuden is a beautiful and I think near perfect addition to the series, filled with stunning cinematography. The series of scenes that decorate this short but powerful episode heighten what was in fact the purpose of Shikamaru's portion, which is, in effect, his coming-of-age story. I always find these types of tales to be profoundly powerful for a number of reasons. Obviously because of their hopeful relatability, but more so because of the crossroads and lessons that a young person must learn in order to become an adult. Shikamaru doesn't know what to do with himself and fails to attend the funeral of his master Asuma. He wanders the streets, sits isolated on his porch for hours, denying his mother's offer for food until eventually his father asks him to play him in a game of shogi. All shot from one angle at first to emphasize the still, measured and reserved nature of the interaction, with Shikaku remarking upon his son's different approach to playing today, citing it as, quote, forceful. The shogi game itself offers this father and son the means with which to subtly reach each other, with Shikaku using it as a vehicle to highlight his son's strengths, his gratitude for his son being alive, and teaching him not to shy away from feeling what he's feeling. Eventually reaching a boiling point where the angle suddenly shifts as Shikamaru flips the table in anger when he's reminded that Asuma is dead. Shikaku tells him to let it all out, that sadness, fear and anger. The direction is spectacular with interesting angles, close-ups of his gritted teeth, and clenched fists. Up until now, Shikamaru had always been someone to rely on in a pinch, to think things through with a measured, calculated approach. His father saw this anger, remarking on his forceful, uncharacteristic playstyle in the shogi game, and that it's not good to attend a son's funeral. In this scene, Shikaku shows Shikamaru how to deal with a tragic reality, to allow these natural feelings to come flooding out, allowing himself to mourn. And later that night, armed with a clear head, he looks again at the shogi board, recognizing a particular tile symbolic of his bond with Asuma, and just like the shinobi Asuma wanted him to be, Shikamaru jumps to action and begins outlining his counterattack on those that took his master and friend from him, masterfully highlighting moments where his plans fail. However, this time, he centers himself, dispassionately formulating this plan meticulously. There are some glimpses of moments clearly taken from the manga in this episode. However, it's the pieces of added connective tissue between these moments that I think elevated the material far above what it was in the manga. There's nothing compromised, there's no theme devalued for the sake of extending the runtime of an anime episode. Everything here feels well thought out, purposeful, and effective in its telling. It's exactly what every anime adaptation of a long-running show should strive to be. It's a 10 out of 10 brilliant addition to this tale, capping itself off with its main focus having learned a difficult but important lesson.
And sorry, but before we go, I just want to point out something that again, just another reason why I love this episode, and just in case you didn't notice, and I'm sure a lot of you probably already noticed this.
In the manga, there's nothing compromised, there's no theme devalued for the sake of extending the runtime of an anime episode. Everything here feels...
Okay, so I just want to focus on this right here. Look at this shot. Like all throughout the episode, you'll see this. Everywhere Shikamaru goes in the village, like there's always children running. There's always children running, and especially here, like this is after his moment where he was mourning for Asuma, and then later on he formulated his plan, and now he's off to collect, Choji and Ino, and then as he's walking, also again he sees there's kids.
Purposeful and effective in its telling. It's exactly
and then here
what
he's
every
walking
anime
away. There's another kid carrying his brother.
Strive to be. It's a 10 out of 10.
Right, and the reason why I point that out is because it directly connects to what Asuma told him, which is a lesson he learned from Sarutobi, the third Hokage. Or not Sarutobi, Hiruzen. His last name is Sarutobi, or he's from the Sarutobi clan, whatever. He learned this from Hiruzen, and then now he's teaching it to Shikamaru, where he asks him, like, who do you think is the king on the chess piece? Like, let's say the chessboard is the Leaf Village, and your pieces represent the people of the village, who's the king, and then later on it's revealed it's actually the children, because the children represent the future of our village. They're the king, and that's why they must be protected, because if something happens to them, then your village has no future. That's why they're the most important. That's why we, the knights or the rooks or the bishops or even the queen, have to do everything we can to protect the king, because without the king we lose. And I love what Kishimoto did right there. And this episode just adding to how beautifully directed it is and how it connects to the overall theme of the Akatsuki Suppression Arc, or one of them, is that the future generation have to be raised, they have to be nurtured, they have to be educated, because they're the ones who will eventually pick up the mantle and then move forward. Like, that's what we're supposed to do as adults. Like, we're supposed to train the next generation to pick things up and be able to move forward, because we're going to have to eventually, pass the torch. And I just absolutely amazing. And again, while in my opinion not as good as some of the other arcs in Naruto, that does not mean that this arc is bad, not by any means. It's still absolutely beautifully written
and effective in its telling. It's exactly what every anime adaptation of a long-running show should strive to be. It's a 10 out of 10 brilliant addition to this tale, capping itself off with its main focus having learned a difficult but important lesson.
待て小田様どこへ行く気だ
I'm not sure if this is a controversial take or not, but I'm gonna be honest, I like Lady Tsunade far more than I ever liked the third Hokage. We actually get to see her work, react to drama, and create strategies as the Hokage of this village and its shinobi, with this scene acting as a prime example of that, tying wonderfully together with and complementing the arc Shikamaru underwent in the anime episode, reflecting on when she lost someone near and dear to her, not wanting that for anyone else. Unlike the third Hokage, we're able to watch Lady Tsunade apply lessons she learned onto the younger generation, telling and then ordering Shikamaru's cell of 3 not to go on some avenging mission in the name of Asuma. It's a sound strategic argument that both speaks to her as a leader and as a character. I
think it's because she knows. I think it's probably because she knows from experience that when you choose to go into something with revenge, then you're not going into it with a clear head. Because revenge can, well, for some people they can use it as motivation. For some people it completely clouds their judgment, and it causes them to do things that they normally wouldn't do. Again, look at Sasuke, for example, or he's probably the prime example, because he's the one where revenge is his primary motivator as a character. I mean, look at some of the things he's done where he normally wouldn't do because he was being driven by revenge. And I think that's what she was trying to tell him, but they were trying to reassure her that, no, that we're not doing this for revenge. Because Shikamaru, I think, again, one of the things that I love about his character is that he understands like what you have to do as a shinobi. He knows that even though these people are the ones who killed someone that I care about, I can't go into this with that mindset. I need to have a clear head, because I'm not just anyone. Like, he knows that he's someone because he was told, not just by his father, I think he also by Asuma, that he is someone the Leaf will eventually come to depend on, because he has something that not everyone has. He has a once in a generation talent or intellect specifically. And yeah, the village will definitely need you in the future. And as we're seeing in the Warzone series, it turns out that, yeah, that's absolutely true.
Were first introduced to her. Unlike many characters which typically act in a binary of active or reactionary in terms of engagement with the plot, she seems to tick both boxes when the time calls for it, enacting her will as an active character onto the story with Shikamaru's cell in this instance, encouraging Kakashi.
And also, I probably shouldn't even need to say this, because I'm sure most of you probably already figured it out, but another thing that I love about the this episode is the animation. Because look at this, look at just this alone.
The plot, she seems to tick both boxes when the time.
Just look at how she's animated here.
Calls for
and the hair, how it moves.
As an active character onto the story with Shikamaru's cell in this instance.
Again, like, so much work into such a small shot, and they didn't need to. They could have, because sometimes like animated series will do this where they'll sort of like not focus too much on certain shots because they want to put more effort into others. So like certain small moments, they won't have as much, animation put into it, and they'll just put like minimal movement because they'll, maybe because technically it's not really necessary. You can choose to focus more time on other parts, other more important parts of the story, but they didn't do that here. Like, they went all out in this episode. Like, here, even look at Choji, how he's animated.
Kakashi to lead the cell, and as a reactionary in the scene immediately
fucking love this episode.
She formulates a plan of action and support, utilizing the updates given to her by Sakura. She's honestly a fascinating character, and one that sits high in my rankings within this story.
Sayonara, sensei.
Shikamaru's counterattack. Despite them entering into this scenario with a newfound vigor and Kakashi in tow, I legit felt a greater sense of foreboding entering into this scenario than I ever thought possible when I first met these two villains, which I think is a testament to Kishimoto's approach in building them up as a credible threat, complete with emotional weight and ties to Shikamaru and his friends Ino and Choji. And while this action gets off to a great start with Shikamaru's plan following through as he anticipated, Kishimoto ends up utilizing this as an opportunity to show us how different types of jutsu react to each other. During this sequence, we routinely cut away to Naruto's training and Yamato explaining the dynamics between different states. Once we get the basics of one concept concerning change of nature, Kishimoto cuts back to the action and shows that mechanic in action through Kakashi's lightning slicing up Kakuzu's Earth-style jutsu. Furthermore, I love that upon hearing this from Yamato, Naruto doesn't focus on what he has that can defeat Sasuke, but instead focuses on how he can amplify and complement his friend, showing us that saving Sasuke is still his one and only focus. There's no resentment, no desire to hurt, only concern and love for his lost companion. It's a quick moment, but it once again reinforces the fact that Kishimoto tries to stay true to his character's motivations at all times. When Kakashi's attack reveals Kakuzu's true power separating into 4 other opponents, the scope of what lies before Shikamaru becomes obvious, assuming the leadership position and formulating a plan of attack utilizing himself as the anchoring point of 2 separate fronts. He's adopted the most work and responsibility in this group, which is a far cry from the person he once was, someone that hardly ever wanted to exert effort, leading to this awesome sequence where we as an audience come to fully understand the scope of Shikamaru's plan, that he readied himself for every contingency and even conceived of a means with which to dispose of Hidan. The strategy implemented by Shikamaru to defeat Kakuzu was amazing and absolutely cathartic. I mean, what a payoff. Utilizing the information garnered by Asuma to take down his attackers by pitting their strengths against each other. What an outstanding effort on behalf of Shikamaru.
Oh yeah, and then it's revealed that they actually have another problem.
At this point, I was thinking in my head, okay, so everyone's either exhausted or not strong enough to take this dude out. The fight itself has been amazing and a struggle against Kakuzu specifically, but at this point, I didn't see a way out of this, which I think made what happens next all the more effective for me.
Sorry guys, you know the drill. Okay, sorry, yeah, I think yeah, no, not here. No. Yeah, okay, so it should be fine. I thought a song was about to start, but it still had those beats, those notes from the actual song. So again, like, I'm sorry guys, I know you guys find it annoying, but what can you do? Like, music is one of the things that you just cannot defend yourself against when it comes to copyright. Even if you can try, but it's not gonna work. Believe it or not, people get struck for playing music that they own. I'm not kidding. Like, people have talked about how YouTube gave them a copyright strike, even though they had music that they wrote themselves. They still gave them a copyright strike. Like, think about that. So yeah,
or
you got to be careful.
Naruto
Sorry.
Is how different people's opinions are on his appearance here. I spoke to one person about this scene, and we completely disagreed on how Naruto's.
By the way, we are over an hour
in this
long.
section, I'm going to explain both, and you can let me know which one you agree with more. Let's start
I
with.
mean, and we've still got a bit of the video,
my
and
friend hated this decision to include Naruto. He felt as though the entire arc had been about Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. Their relationship.
I mean, I can kind of understand what he was going with. Like, yeah, like the whole thing was focused on, you know, Shikamaru, and then in comes Naruto, and he, you know, does the save. But I guess, I probably would have preferred if Ino and Choji worked together with Kakashi to take out Kakuzu, as opposed to Naruto coming in and then just taking him out with the Rasen Shuriken, even though he didn't actually kill him. Like, it was Kakashi who ended up killing him at the end. I do get where his friend's going with this. I do understand it, and that's something that did kind of bother me in this series. Like, Ino and Choji didn't really, if you think about it, accomplish anything. If anything, they were kind of in the way. Like, even Shikamaru at one point in the manga even says, like, yeah, like you two won't be able to do anything. Like, it has to be me. And it just like, it just kind of sucked. I mean, if that's the case, then why the hell were they even there, other than they were sort of, excuse me, like, again, they had a connection to Shikamaru. Yeah, but I guess like, you wanted to include a payoff to Naruto's training, and I get that, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I just would have really liked it if Choji and Ino actually did something. Although they did kind of do something in the war arc when Asuma was brought back, so I guess that was better than anything, but I kind of would have liked it if they actually did something here.
Relationship with Asuma and that this was their big battle to avenge their fallen master. Going on to say, sure, Shikamaru might get to have his moment, but Naruto just steals everyone's thunder and removes everyone else's agency. He had no connection to this arc, but he just rolls up because he has to pay off his training arc. In short, he thought it was horribly disconnected and as a result hated it. And to be honest, depending on what way you look at this, I think that's a fair way of reading the situation, but it wasn't mine. I suppose in the manga, the two stories of this arc are of Shikamaru learning a lesson and Naruto honing a new technique. Two characters working through a struggle to overcome a loss. I understood that were part of that cell and lost their mentor too. However, upon reflection, their part in the arc
did he say another name by accident?
Not at all the focus. In the end, I saw it as Naruto and Shikamaru ending an arc that centered around them specifically. The only one in the cell that I cared about getting a conclusion to their story was Shikamaru for reasons I already explained. Choji and Ino did do a bit, and I did enjoy their contribution, but they very much felt, to me at least, tagged onto the arc at the very end, albeit in a natural and understandable way. Keeping in mind, however, that I've only read the manga, I have no idea if the anime did more stuff to help Choji and Ino feel more like a bigger part in the end. But with that said, I do want to
Not
also
really,
acknowledge
I
that
mean,
while Naruto's training was interesting, it didn't necessarily
they
need
did
to combine
do
with
more
Shikamaru's
than they did in the
storyline
manga, if I
back to
remember
Akatsuki,
correctly, but
though it didn't bother me as
they
it
didn't
take
really
away from
contribute
Shikamaru's
to the
moment,
overall
and from an
ending
in-universe position, it
of
makes sense
the
for
actual
Naruto to be
arc.
there, as he has plenty to do
And
with
the actual
Akatsuki.
fight
So
in and
the
of
end,
itself.
I guess the biggest difference between my opinion and my friends is that I didn't feel that Choji and Ino played a big enough role in the arc to secure that big moment he wanted for them. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Kakashi contributed more to that story than they did. But in terms of
Definitely
my reaction
more.
to Naruto showing up, I don't think I've ever been more happy to see him as a character. Experiencing this honestly felt kind of fresh too. Naruto up until now has been the one that follows the leader and gets saved or comes in clutch at the end in a sloppy but effective fashion. This, on the other hand, feels similar, though not identical, to Goku showing up to help fight the Ginyu Force. In the back of my mind, I'm just thinking to myself, has he managed to get strong enough? Will we see the perfected jutsu he's been working on? And in addition to that, his arrival onto the battlefield comes with it an air of quiet, stoic confidence. I could really feel the progression of his character emotionally compared to the first arcs. Once a character that fought to prove himself by rushing into dangerous circumstances without any plan, and now he's fighting specifically for a friend and implements his shadow clones to gain precious intel to determine a plan of attack. There's a subtle maturity to Naruto in this fight, and it feels wonderful to see him implement the lessons he learned in the prior training section he enjoyed. But he falls short.
4代目火影を超える忍びはお前しかいないってそう信じてるって
I think this scene is perfect. It's a gentle but superb reminder that while Naruto has developed and changed over the course of the story, he's still himself, willing to constantly pick himself up off the ground to try and try again until he gets the result he's looking for, willing to push himself into circumstances that are dangerous if they mean that he can get closer to achieving his goal of protecting Sasuke. It's a wonderful combination of everything I love about the character, and I love the subtle piece of foreshadowing we get from the technique through the last scene we see of Naruto training as he's standing in the middle of a large crater. The attack itself is stunning and one that eclipses any other effort I've seen from any other character thus far in the series, capping off with a wonderful but quiet acknowledgement from Kakashi that Naruto has indeed surpassed even him. And I love stuff like that. But in all honesty, nothing caps off this fight and really this arc like Shikamaru acting as Hidan's god as he is passing judgment onto him before blowing him up and burying him underneath meters and meters of rock and earth. Couple that with the beautiful imagery provided and you have for yourself a cacophony of all the things I love about Kishimoto as a manga artist. I'm not kidding when I say this, that between these two arcs, Kishimoto I felt really up the ante and forced me to care about things I never thought I would. And of course, built upon already sturdy foundations that brings us to where I find myself today. It's certainly not the flashiest, but I love how this fight really reflects and plays into the strategic aspects of the leading character Shikamaru, while also feeling uniquely clever and appropriate for a ninja-styled encounter. This fight Shikamaru had with Hidan doesn't at all feel like a fight that could take place in any other world other than Naruto, with the elements it takes advantage of, and as a result, it gets extra points from that for me. The character of Shikamaru has come leaps and bounds farther than I ever thought he could, with his final scene once again highlighting his fact as the shogi game between himself and his father conclude, highlighting his acknowledgement of the responsibility himself and his friends bear going into the future, and his acceptance to the wife of his former master to become their guardian and master in the future. I've never seen Shikamaru so motivated and determined to work hard for a better tomorrow, and I honestly couldn't be happier with the way this arc ended.
全員にとどめは刺してないわね。
Ooh, now that's a good cliffhanger. Next week, I'll be starting Spidey December by reviewing Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man's 1,
Okay,
2,
well-
and 3. And in the new year, 2022, I will resume my reviews for Naruto and Berserk. This really and truly seems to be a series that keeps on getting bigger and better, and I cannot wait to dive back into more material with you all then. But for now, I'll see you all next week, and thank you all so much for watching.
Okay, so I think we can stop right there because I can tell the, like as always, the song is about to start. But anyway, yeah, I mean, this was a really good video, and yeah, it's really long. So don't worry, I'm gonna wrap it up soon because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to, as always, keep you guys here any longer than you need to. But yeah, I just absolutely, there are some things. I think one thing in particular that I kind of contested with, you know, one of the points that he brought up, where I think it was somewhere over here, where yeah, he talked about you know, Sasuke letting Naruto and the others live. And well, again, I do agree with what he brought up, where Sasuke, like, deep down doesn't actually want to kill Naruto, and that's something that I've been saying for God knows how long. And we all know in the Naruto universe that if you're not all there mentally, it's going to affect how you perform. It is absolutely going to affect how you perform. And because fighting in Naruto, when you're utilizing your chakra, it's mental and physical. Like, both of them have to be in perfect alignment for you to bring out your full capabilities. And when one of them isn't, you know, one of them, like, if you're not focusing a lot on, you know, on one of them, like either your mental or your physical chakra, then you're not going to perform as well as you can, because, you know, it's all off. And that's why I've always said that when it comes to his fights against Naruto, Sasuke has never really performed like the best that he could, because he, no matter how much he tried to convince himself, he could never fully, you know, kill Naruto. He never could. And I think Naruto on some level also knew that. Like, that's why I think at the end he said, like, I do want to fight you, but not like this, not the current you. He wants to fight the real you. And yeah, that's what I've said. So, but the whole he didn't let he didn't let Naruto and the others live. It was Orochimaru who convinced him to leave, because they wanted them to take out the other members of the Akatsuki, because Orochimaru, you know, wanted them gone, because I think he knows that they're hunting him down, and he convinced Sasuke to do it because then it'll make it easier for him to get his revenge, which even he said is like kind of a pitiful excuse. And he said, well, yeah, but Kamsa says it's better than nothing. But yeah, I mean, let me know your guys' thoughts as always. Remember to leave a like if you haven't. Please share this video, guys, and make sure to subscribe if you're new. Click on the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video, because YouTube's notification system is still kind of wonky. And please, guys, comment down below with your thoughts. All of those things really go a long way in pushing videos out in the algorithm. And make sure to leave any recommendations you have in the comment section down below, and I will get to them, don't worry. But like I said, right now we are focusing on Mark's Naruto, you know, reviews, and once that's over, I'll get to every video that you guys recommend to me in the comments. So if you're wondering when that's going to be, well, we're at part 6, and I think there's like 13 parts if I remember correctly. So we're close to halfway done, if that makes any sense. But yeah, next time it's part 7, and it's going to be covering one of my absolute favorite fights in the entire series, Sasuke versus Itachi, and you can see it right here. And yeah, it seems like he's going to be covering, yeah, Sasuke versus Itachi and and Jiraiya versus Pain, which are, oof, I can't wait to get to that video. But anyway, guys, like remember, like I said, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.